Before we begin part 2 of INN's examination of 9/11 conspiracies, fact or fiction, and speak to today's guest, let's take a look at a clip from the History Channel's presentation.
When Galileo said that the world was round and not flat, he was locked up for the last few years of his life for saying it. But a few years after his death, it went from being widely accepted that it was flat to widely accepted that it was round. And so I'm saying the world is round. I'm saying that 9/11 is an inside job, and I'm showing that the official story is a fraud, a flat earth theory, and I know I'm going to be vindicated.
Next, we'll speak with syndicated talk show host Alex Jones, who has written a scalding piece about the History Channel's work and has another take on filmmaker Brad Davis. Welcome to INN.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Lenny.
Alex, your article, History Channel hit piece, Dirty Tricks, Malicious Lies, and Journalistic Fraud, doesn't pull too many punches. But those interviewed, like Sophia Smallstorm, thought Davis is an okay guy. You imply otherwise. Let's begin here.
Well, he's a congenital liar, and to go back 2 years ago when Popular Mechanics first called me, they promised, they swore, Benjamin Chertoff, the head of the piece, promised that it was not a hit piece. They said it was showing both sides, just looking at the movement. I could tell they were liars. I said, okay, it's a hit piece, but fine. I'm going to still step up to the plate. I'm not going to back off. You know, that's fine. I'll do the interview. Every time they bring up some kooky issue, I would point out that it was disinfo, that it wasn't my material, that it was deliberate hacks or disinfo agents. They would still try to attribute it to me. So I knew that that was a hit piece. And then, sure enough, they lied. It came out. It was debunking 9/11 conspiracy theories. Then they put out a book. Those two pieces, the magazine and the book, have been completely debunked. We wrote dozens of articles at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. David Ray Griffin has written a book debunking 9/11 debunking. I mean, it had all sorts of lies in it, just amazing things. Well, then I get a call from this Brad Davis. He swears it's not a hit piece. He swears that he's going to show both sides. I do a little bit of research on him and, you know, find out that he'd done a few hit pieces in the past. But I said, go ahead, come to Austin, do your hit piece. But he even fooled some of my staff. He even fooled some of the local Austinites he interviewed who would argue with me and tell me, oh, no, he's a good guy. In fact, 3 weeks ago, before it even aired, the History Channel posted on their site that they were going to debunk us and disprove everything that we'd said. And I said, see right there, that's a declaratory statement that it's a debunking exercise, that it's not, quote, fair and balanced, as they like to say. And people still said, oh, no, Brad Davis, he promised me it wasn't a hit piece. He's a stand-up guy. And I said, that guy's a snake. That guy's one of these corporate shills. I've seen it before. You'll see it's going to be a hit piece. And it is the worst hit piece I've ever seen. So out of the gates, he lied. He said it wasn't a hit piece, just like he lied to Michael Jackson and swore it wasn't a hit piece and got that famous Dateline NBC piece done. Now, the difference is Michael Jackson is a scumball. 9/11 Truth isn't Michael Jackson. We don't deserve what happened. And then you get into the actual piece itself, and there are so many lies that it boggles the mind to even try to deal with all of them. But there's one blaring one in there that both the writers from Popular Mechanics put out, and they just, with a statement, say, with the words expert under them. And I'm not knocking these guys because they don't have a lot of education, but James Meggs ran a TV Guide news site that reviewed DVDs last.
Supposedly about 10 cell phone calls were made from it. It was traveling above 30,000 feet and even went up to over 40,000 feet. But when you look at the cell phone technology in 2001, such calls simply were not possible.
Back in 2001, cell phones would work up to about 50,000 feet. Flight 93, where you hear about these cell phone calls, never got much higher than about 40,000 feet. So at least as far as that's concerned, it was feasible.
It would cut from us and say expert, and he says, hey, everybody knows that cell phones work at 50,000 feet in 2001. Well, folks, even mainstream media says they don't work above 10,000 feet. I and everybody else I know have tested them. They cut out at about 2,000 feet for us. I'm lucky if my cell phone today works in my house or if I'm in the basement, much less when I'm at 30,000 feet. Cell phones never work. They also lie and say out of 40 phones, 38 of them were air phones. You can go pull up the mainstream news. They admit that no, the majority were the cell phones, and that cell phones do not work at 50,000 feet. No facts, no evidence. They just say everybody knows cell phones work at 50,000 feet. On top of this, there's also aesthetic lies and deception they engage in. There was a 9/11 Truth meeting here in Austin over 2 days, University of Texas. The lecture hall seated 500 people. When I spoke, almost every seat was filled. There were over 500 people there. There were people standing at the back. They shot video during recesses, hour-long lunches, and they show like 100 people sporadically in the stands, and they show a cut of that and then cut to me and cut to other speakers. They did stuff like shoot video of myself and others and then blow the video up, stretch our faces across the screen. I mean, it was just every tactic they could. I mean, I've made 16 films, so I know what it looks like when somebody's doing that. But, I mean, there were parts, Lenny, that were so obvious where you see footage of us at 9/11 at Ground Zero. And they took the video and made it where my head's glowing red and everything's got blue glowing haze on it, where it looks like it's a 15-generation VHS copy of something. So they also played aesthetic tricks where we looked like total crap, and then they would cut to James Meggs and others at Popular Mechanics at the big Hearst building with stainless steel and huge picture windows.
These calls were faked has been something that sort of sprung up more recently in the theory movement. Frankly, it's about the one thing in this entire debate that I have any personal opinion on, and I find it disgusting.
It is one thing to explain away the hijackers and pin the blame on a handful of neoconservatives. But when the 9/11 conspiracy theorists confront those who lost friends and family on 9/11, an abstract theory runs into an emotional response.
On 9/11, I lost my brother Andrew Steven Zucker. He was 27 years old.
I think out of 54 people from the fire department who I interacted with that morning, of them, 5 of us are alive.
Sometimes 9/11 conspiracists, in their aggressive desire to win over converts, step into sensitive territory.
The same people who killed Kennedy did this.
Yeah, that's right, sir.
This exchange took place at Ground Zero on the 5th anniversary of September 11th.
You can't come over here and abuse these people's rights to mourn their losses.
I am not trying to abuse anyone's rights to mourn their losses.
Oh, I would assume that it's okay for me to walk into your mother's funeral and start calling her all kind of obscene names, right?